Thought I'd make a video, talk about some more stuff, some more topics that just kind of what's on my mind. Um, I really do hope I'm wrong about this. I really, really do. I'm almost scared to talk about it, not because to be wrong, because I don't like to dabble in any type of mediumship, none of that. Even things that come close. Using gut instincts, yes, I understand instincts and whatnot, but when it comes to something that science really doesn't have too much proof why a certain paranormal or whatever, but this is about Albert's sister, and the reason I say is because I was just thinking, like, there's more to the story than people realize. Robert Zarate didn't know this girl. And I had known her I remember her just being there, and knowing her skin color and hair color and our ethnicity, I knew that she would naturally be attracted to me, because in the sort of world that we live in, especially since she didn't look like she came from a lot of money, and she was very well dressed. She was always seemed very, like, have you ever seen Little House on Prairie? Like those kind of dresses that she always was like covered up, and she would hold her hands like she was very very pure when you looked at her, like just a very pretty girl, and I remember being on the soccer field a few times, and I recall a number of times at practice, and also a few soccer games. And when we got older, I was at DeWitt Perry, and she didn't know Robert very well. And I knew, you don't understand how well I knew Robert. Every friend he talked to, nearly his network of people, I knew. It was very, very intuitive of so many circumstances that was going on. And it was unusual for Robert Zarate to ever say anything like that about a girl. And it makes me think, it really, honestly, what I believe is, I think that she was talking to Robert to maybe try to get my attention, because I remember her looking at me, and she kind of gave this, like, she was kind of like, like, oh, you don't think you're good enough for me, or you think you're too good for me, or something. And she was developed. When I talk to, like, developed, like, she filled in better than any other. Her puberty filled in very beautifully, filled in than all the other girls, and like you could tell she was making very healthy babies. And I've seen Albert's mother, I think, like a few times, and she was like this really, really short lady. And and I knew that she used to come home every day, and you saw Albert breakdancing all the time. But I thought it was important for me to talk about. I hate to think anything like that of somebody, regarding a little girl or a girl that was strangled, raped, anything like that. And I know I'm not in any position to be talking about really any of these circumstances, but I hope, because my mother's twin said something to me, and they get her to tell her things. Oh no, she's okay. And that's because I don't know. I don't know. So I thought it was important for me to talk about, because girls are intuitive like that. When they're very young and you're a kid, and I didn't ever have too much problems at all getting girls to be attracted to me a lot, all through grade school. It was all like that all the time growing up for me. And I didn't know her, never had a full solid conversation with her. she must have saw me from the distance when she showed up to the soccer games, and I was like the only like sort of Hispanic on the team that I was on. Albert was Mexican too, but he was, he looked like he had like a light black hair, almost like a really dark brown hair, and his skin was lighter than mine. And so in the ethnicity world that we live in, it's very common that you'll find girls like it, because Mexican girls won't ever tend to like the white boys, and when they do, it's very seldom, because the adults and the parents teach racism to the kids very early in age. And also me growing up, just like you could talk to any black kid, you start to recognize why you're treated different. You start to gradually understand why this person is a higher status and is more important, and you don't understand why particularly. You start to relate that that's the skin color, the eye color, and the hair color, and your appearance, your looks. So I think it's important for me to talk about for a minute. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to think like that. Something like that's really bad. But the reason I say this is because I was on that soccer field, and there wasn't a black cloud. I remember I wasn't mad at the person at all. I was just kind of running like I felt sort of embarrassed because this girl liked me. And I thought, well, okay, well, she does. And I'm not deterred from the conversation. I remember very distinctively, as I was from a distance, there was no one around me, and I was running, and I wasn't frustrated at her. I looked, and I this impression or something very dark was going to happen to this person. And I want to say that the word either said she was murder, or somebody was going to kill her, or somebody was going to do something. I know it sounds fucked up. I mean, I hope I'm fucking wrong on this shit, but I don't want to hear anything like that. But I remember I was running on the field, and I was thinking to myself, she's a pretty innocent girl. What the hell? What the shit? What the fuck? Because I remember thinking to myself, it's like, she's just a nice, pretty girl. And I remember like turning around this doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? Or I got this impression, or not from her, and she was standing with her hands. She'd always stand with her hands kind of like this, and kind of just, and just being a beautiful girl, right? And I, at that time, I really wasn't particularly chasing girls. I was 9 years old. I was about 9, not older than 10. I was 9 or 10 years old, because I had stopped playing soccer when I was, I think, 11, and so I was just about 10 years old, and I remember very distinctively thinking that it's so easy for me to kind of fall into these traps of, okay, you want to hire your status, you want to think you're special, to whatever it is. For myself, this is not that, and I don't want to, because I have the electronic devices and colleges and all this other shit that they're doing, and but I remember very distinctively what the fuck? It didn't make sense to me, because I remember just thinking she's a sweet, nice girl, and I was thinking that wasn't me. Or there was this sort of impression, or there was something very dark that wanted to get to her, and she was just this light or something. I don't know. Maybe that's the best way I can explain it. But I remember her walking. When I saw Robert, and he was talking to her, and Robert would consistently tell me, dude, she's so sweet, and he never talked about any girl like this to me ever. And I thought it was because Robert looked a lot like her, like the ethnicity type. Same colored hair, skin tone. That they look like they were from the same. They're like Brazilian or South American. And I remember Robert did not know her good enough, and that means I know she had been talking to Robert to maybe try to hook up with me. But I didn't. He was telling me all the time, like for like months, like, dude, like he'd always go to me. He goes, dude, oh my god, she saw my bag, dude. She's so sweet. I love her. Like, and I would kind of laugh. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like, what? What are you? And I have no idea. Like, I don't really even think she has any interest in me. I really don't. Like, because I was very puny. I was a very skinny kid growing up in middle school. I was never a big guy. I was always very, very skinny. And I remember her smiling, and I was sort of near the gym. I was walking to toward the cafeteria. I looked to my left, and I saw her and Robert talking, and she was just like laughing and giggling with another girl. And I remember her sort of looking at me, and like, because I got that a lot from a lot of girls. You know how girls, they have to look at you. I used to actually have girls when I was in middle school randomly pull out cameras. Like, back then nobody had cell phone back in the days, but they would get cameras from like Walgreens or whatever. The little Kodak cameras you can purchase, and they would pull them out very quickly, and I'd be walking down the hall and they'd flash me. They'd take a picture of me. I had a lot of girls do that. I had several girls do that quite a bit. At least, like, I remember at least like 3 or 4 times. I'm gonna say at least 2 or 3 times. They pulled out a camera. I didn't know who they were, and they were a grade below me, and they yell out my name, and I turn around, and I don't know who they were. I didn't have classes, and they were 7th grade and I was in 8th grade, or they'd be in 6th grade and I was in 7th grade, or they were in the same grade. I never talked to them. I didn't know who they were, and they pulled out a camera and take a picture of me so that they could. You know how like girls have posters and stuff on their walls. They take a picture so that they can look at. And but I remember her, and I thought I'd make a video on that. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't get mentally into something that I don't know if what's going on. But I thought I'd talk about it because it was very weird. There was nothing around. It was an open soccer field. It was just, and she was to my left. She was right in the middle toward the corner kick and the audience bleachers, and the bleachers were right in the center of the soccer field on the side. And I always played left forward. Sometimes I played right, but I was always placed as the left forward, and primarily setting up for the goal kicks and for the power shots. And I say that because it was, I remember thinking to myself, like, what the fuck? And and I knew it wasn't me. Okay, this is not. I'm not trying to go down the route that Hector's trying to think of murder and killing an innocent girl, and he's 9 years old. He's an evil motherfucker. No, that's not what this is. It was. I just thinking that somebody, like you, or something said that she was going to die, or rape, strangle, or something bad was going to happen, or something bad wanted to get to her, very bad, and like very bad, like this, because she looked so. It was like this innocence. If you looked at her, and people looked at her because. She behaved very different than any of the girls on the soccer fields or any of the girls that I had ever seen. It's a very different innocence because she came from a very poor car, came out of the car, and I remember that. I remember looking at her, and she came out of this, this ghetto car with Albert, and Albert was like the best soccer field, and his mom used to drop him off, and I remember that, and I remember looking at the bleachers, at the people, and they were all kind of like, oh, let's play matchmaker, and that's kind of what triggered it a little bit, to me, and because I felt sort of like they were being racist, because you pick up on that, you pick up on that when you start to realize the white girls and the white mothers and the white males, and particularly the females, the white females, and how they behave with that and what they do. Like when I would be on the soccer field and I could tell that I'd be staring at the blonde hair girls that were all blonde hair soccer little girls, and I was like 7 or 8. I was like 9 or 10. I could look at the males and I could see that, and they didn't. It wasn't like an approval. It wasn't an approval behavior or looks at me, and I was intrigued by that, why their hair color was like that, but with her, she just looked, it's easy for me to go and say very pure, like just very pure heart, like pure, like that's because she was so well postured, and she was so well postured, and so like she looked like her parents and her mother covered over her body very well, like as a girl. Like this wasn't gonna be one of those girls where they wear tank tops and shit out in the fucking soccer field and putting loads of fucking lipstick and makeup on it like 7 years old. This is not what this is. She looked like they had parents, especially when your brother's probably in sports, because Albert didn't just play soccer. He played baseball, and I think he played another sport. But he was in karate as well for a while. But he played baseball, and he was also in. Those are usually their constructive parents that do stuff like that. So, but I don't know. I can't. I don't know the truth to it, but it was very weird. I remember just thinking of that to myself. Like something bad was going to eventually happen to her, and it was to somebody that was going to do something very bad, like the worst that you can imagine. But she looked very pure, It makes me want to say all the beautiful, nice things, because is that of my Mexican culture and Latin culture to how we get treated, our skin and hair color and eye color, and what that really is. But I remember she filled in very nice. She like developed better than all the other girls. Like early, like she was, she developed very, very early in life, beautifully, very beautifully, and I remember the how girls giggle and stuff when they like a boy. That's exactly what she was doing. I occasionally see her, but there were several months I remember Robert was always telling me. And I would like, why don't you get her number, or hook up with her, or whatever. He goes, I don't know, I keep trying, but I don't know, I just keep trying, but she doesn't want to. I don't know, I keep trying, but I don't think she wants to. So it makes me, I know, in fact, if it turns out that Robert Zarate, he was trying to hook me up with her for sure. But yeah, I gotta get to bed.